can stand against the Lord? Say no one can, no one will. Say who can stand against our King? No one can, no one will. The victory belongs to Jesus. The victory belongs to Him. Say the victory belongs to Jesus. The victory belongs to Him. 'Cause your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. And yours is a kingdom. Yours is a power. Yours is a glory forever. Amen. Oh, yours is a kingdom. Yours is a power. Yours is a glory forever. Amen. Yeshua, is a power, yours is a glory forever. Who can stand against the Lord? Say no one can, no one will. Say who can stand?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you once more for joining us here on the podcast to share and to learn about talented, gifted persons who just have such a powerful story to share. So we know today is Friday, it's a Friday evening, you could be doing many other things, but you're here. So thank you for joining us at Grace by God podcast, and I truly hope that this evening you will be blessed by the story that we have to bring to you. All right, you know that once we are sitting in this seat, we have something powerful for you. We bring stories that you really have to stand back and realize that God is real and He's powerful and He's able to do anything. So you know that any story we bring here, it's definitely for His glory, but it's also a story that will inspire you. So I hope that you will enjoy this evening. You'll get to learn some more about my guest, and you will invite somebody to join and to hear. Thank you once more for joining us, and just enjoy. Sit back. It's Friday. Get a popcorn. Get your food if you have to. KFC line too long, so nobody go KFC now. But just get something to eat and relax and listen. Thanks again. I wondered to myself, this evening coming here, I wondered to myself, what would life had been for me if I did not know Christ? That thought crossed my mind. I wondered, what would my life look like now? Where would I be? What would I be doing? Who would I be? And I just can't see anything good. I just can't think of anything good that would represent my life now if I did not know Christ. And that's just the truth of it. So when I think about this and I see persons with stories that are just phenomenal and just blow your mind, it makes you just take a moment to say, thank you, Jesus. Thank you that even though sometimes we didn't know what this journey would be like for us, we know now, standing years later in the place that you want us to be, that you had your hands over us all this time. And so it's just a blessing to sit and to talk with God's people and to hear their story and to hear how God has blessed them and to hear how God has protected them and provided for them and how God has always been there. Sometimes you didn't know that God was there really and truly. You didn't feel like He was. But when you're able to stand on the other side, on the promised land, you really see that God was in the middle of it all, nevertheless. And so this evening, I want to introduce to you my very special guest. Her name is Jayvienne Sterling, and I'm wondering if I should share too much about her or allow her to introduce herself. But I have with me, as I said before, Jayvienne. She's a wife, she's a minister. She's a powerful woman of God. Yes, she is a minister and a powerful woman of God. And I'm so blessed to have her this evening. Welcome, Jayvienne.
Hi, good night. Good night, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited to share. I believe a lot of us don't know the power behind our stories. And as you said, you were coming in thinking about where would you be as I think about sharing. I mean, there's so many angles to share from, but ultimately, I'm excited to share because, as I always tell persons, God is our puzzle maker. He's the one who sets the pieces of our lives and puts everything for the bigger picture for what He's going for. So, for His glory.
Amen. Amen. So we're not going to wait too long. We're going to head straight in the story because we want to get enough time to share and to delve into things and to just learn more about our guest this evening. So Jayvienne, without any further talking that's not relevant to your story, I just want to start right away. Tell us a bit more about, or tell us about how your early years were, like how you started out as far as you can remember. What was it like being at home? What was your home setting like? School? Just your early years coming up into preteen.
Okay, so let me say as far back as I could go. One thing that's threaded that far back is my love for plants and nature. As a child, I would love to be outside, and I grew up kind of sheltered, kind of in the strict homes that most of us in Jamaica would grow up in. So I didn't go out on the road often, but where I definitely wanted to be was on every rooftop, every treetop. So I had older male cousins who would be around a lot. And so when they're playing, if they're riding bicycles, if whatever thing they would be doing, I want to be in the middle of that. I want to make sure I'm on every roof they climb on, even if I don't know how I'm getting up there. I'm much taller now, so people would look and be like, oh yeah, that's easy. But then I was a little ticky,
Yeah.
little one, but I'm behind everyone. Um, One thing as well that stood out is what mom would always say is say your prayers. So going to bed, you have to say your prayers. I may not have been in church because my immediate family weren't saved. And so knowing God the way I do now, I wouldn't have known Him then. But now, in retrospect, which is 2020, I can see His hand over the stages of life. So for the very tender parts of my life, I would have been with my mom and my dad. But at around 3 years old, my dad left for England. He did the proverbial go get the milk thing. We're gonna get better life, and the life was better for him and not necessarily us. I grew up from there with my mom and stepdad and my little brother. That experience was a juxtaposition for me. It was great some seasons and tragic other seasons, but we'll get into the details of that, of course. Growing up in that environment taught me a lot. It molded a lot of how I became, my personality, being angry or being feisty is what people call it. My face would tell you what my mind thought before my mouth would open. And so the aggression of that environment caused me to become angry, and even dealing with dad not being around brought daddy issues that a lot of girls in our time, nobody wants to admit to daddy issues. So rejection, figuring out I have to be there for myself, so you become stronger than necessary, thinking you're bamboo. So that was an experience. But coming to Christ was a multiple piece thing for me. During high school, so I should probably talk about primary school. I went to Rollington Town Primary, so that's a community primary school. You'd walk to school. And of course, our teachers would joke about, hey, who last laugh will last best, and threaten us with the GSAT threats. You fret before you even get to do the exam. And so at that time, I was very shy, timid, wouldn't talk as much, very quiet. And so I would think, boy, I don't know how I'm going to pass this GSAT thing, but through the grace of God, I had help. He had persons in my life who would help me, and I passed, and I went to Holy Child High School. I would have been the only one from that year group and area going to that school, so it would have been an accomplishment, something your family could be proud of, and you hold up your head. And so that for me was the early years into high school. Going into high school, it came with all the dramas of going to an all-girls school, came with all the dramas of growing into yourself sexually, maturing, figuring out who you are, your identity.
Right. So, Jayvienne, at that young age, did you recognize that your father wasn't around? At what point did you realize that daddy's not coming back? Or did you start to ask mommy, where is daddy? Any of that?
I honestly can't remember asking her any of that, but so my grandmother is a seamstress, and so my extended family would be around a lot. So I don't know when it would have connected with me, but I had a strong woman around me all the time. So it was always women. The connection of not having a male there didn't really hit home until later, when you go to school and you have certain projects and they start asking you, so tell us about your father's side of the family. Are you doing the trees? And you're like, wait, I really don't know much. But living through that time, I didn't really think I felt the absence as much because of the women that were around. There was one instance, I think in primary school. So in our homes in Jamaica, well, I don't know for everyone else's, but mine, grandma and auntie and everybody would have pictures of the whole family, everybody is somewhere in the house. And so there was a picture of my father in the house, and I was about maybe 10. And I remember looking, I can identify everybody on the wall. I see my uncle, I see my brother, my mom, everybody I can think of, even distant cousins are right there. And I saw a man, and I thought, who is that? I know everybody on this wall, who is he? And I remember asking my aunt about, who is that? And she was like, those hesitant moments, this is not my question to answer. Let me leave that to your mom. So she did that. And when I asked, my grandma was like, oh, is your father? I was like, my father. And I think that realization, that moment of, whoa, there's an absence here. I actually don't have my father. Not that my mother shielded me from the realities of life. I knew that my stepdad wasn't my dad, but I didn't feel a vacancy, an absence until, wait, I can't relate, I can't connect, I'm much taller, I'm much darker, oh, I don't fit here. And that's when I realized, oh, he's not around.
Right. And so I know you said you did not grow up in a strict Christian home where you had to go to church every Sunday or that kind of rigidity, but you still had some godly principles that your mother would have instilled in you, like praying before you go to bed.
Yeah.
At that time, did you really connect with Christ? Or was it just that I know that mommy said that we should pray, and grandma I see grandma praying, and I feel like this is probably a right thing to do?
Well, a couple funny stories to answer that. I think now, in retrospect again, I can see that I always, God was just always present. I could feel him tangibly present. So even though my way of looking at children in ministry and looking at children, I never take their relationship with God lightly, because I recognize even in the prayers. So one prayer mom always led us in praying was, gentle Jesus, meek and mild, pity my simplicity,
Yes.
suffer me to come to thee. And each time she would tuck us in and say, okay, say your prayers and repeat after me. I would say that prayer all the time back then, and I was saying it with all my heart, because I really felt like gentle Jesus was right beside me, and I would say it with all my heart. But I never knew the word was simplicity. So I used to say, pity my simplicity. And it would crack my mother up every time we got to that part of it. But she was serious otherwise. So that's one instance where I know in that way my upbringing, definitely, Jesus was always tangibly present.
Right, right.
There are other instances where I would pray and like pray and feel Jesus being present with me, thinking that if I stop praying here and I say amen, then I'm leaving Jesus in this room, and then I have to go wherever I'm going, and Jesus doesn't come with me. My grandmother as well would take me to church with her sometimes. So she would take it to, at that time, I guess Sunday school was important to children more than taking them to church per se. So she would take me to church. That's one way I would have interacted with Christ. But the reality of him was more an introduction of Jesus as a person to me. So a Jehovah's Witness, which everybody hides when a Jehovah's Witness passing a gate and passing a yard. My yard in particular, because grandma sews, it would be her and about two other ladies, and we'd be on the veranda, and I'd be out under the trees outside. So everybody is out. Everything is open. People are here. You see the Jehovah's Witness coming up the road, and at this time I live on uh, the fire station is at the corner of our road. So there's a chain link fence that you can see people coming up the road before they get there. So the Jehovah's Witness would be coming, and suddenly this place that was wide open, noise making, laughing happening, is still. There is nobody here. The pastor's still here, but there's this one lady who lives on our road. So she lives down the road, and she's a Jehovah's Witness. She passes, and she always loved seeing me. So even in the stillness, like nobody is there, she would come and she'd ask for me and try to find me. She gave me two books. She gave me one, My Book of Bible Stories, and Jesus the Great Teacher. She didn't just give me the book. She didn't just talk to us about Jesus. She actually said, her name is Miss Bryce. She actually said, any question you have, ask me, and actually read the books. And she would come, did you read the book? And sit with me on the bench outside, spending her time to read with me. So what you thought about that? And this way, because I began to see the character of God, the heart of God in these stories, it wasn't like reading the direct Bible, but these stories were literally the Bible stories in this book. And I began to say, whoa, God really care about people. Look how him give them food. Or I began to see him as tangible. And when my life began to have the need for that kind of God, when I started experiencing the physical abuse at home, where my mom would have been abused, and I would be hurting and crying, and I needed a real Jesus. I needed a real person to really intervene in these situations. I needed a real Jesus to wipe my tears and stuff. And that's when I think my relationship with him got serious, and I began to acknowledge him. So I said couple funny stories. The other part was my grandmother had a friend, her name slips me now, but she spoke in tongues all the time. He said he walk up and down talking in tongues. She knew, I don't know, the super spiritual people we know, I guess no people would look at me in that light, but then I didn't understand this tongues thing, but I just knew she knew God, because she was always praying, she's always reading her Bible, she's so sweet to everybody, including people I think you should just diss them and go. And so one day she was speaking in tongues, crazy speaking in tongues, and I remember saying, Jesus, I usually talk to God, you talk to me in English. So what's going on here? But even her openly being Christian and openly being who she is, spiritually influenced how I see and perceived God and how I received him.
Great. So you touched a bit on that lady introducing Christ to you. Well, started to evangelize you and bringing books to you, and you started to read these books, and you had questions. You wanted to find out more about Jesus. Yeah. So actually, shows here the importance of evangelism, because even though we run away from the Jehovah's Witnesses,
they have something right.
It's still they're still doing something that's working,
Yes.
right? But at this point now, you were in like the first year of high school.
Right. So so for devotions in primary school and so forth, that was very meaningful to me. They sing hymn songs and whatever. I'd really be receiving that. But coming to Christ or coming to oh, I really need him, other than just reading about him or hearing about him, it really happened for me about second form, though I knew more. Going to all girl, I went to such a Catholic school, so they had mass. Mass was every first Friday, whether you are Taliban, whatever you are, you must be in mass.
To go to mass.
No one cares your choices, and when you are at mass, it's not your rest period to sleep, it's participatory. And so in that, I began to see, or mass is like church, but far more extravagant, kneeling, standing, it's like an exercise. So, but in there, I began to hear them preach more about this Jesus, and I realized, I guess in first form to second form, I recognized my wretchedness, my weight, but a really dirty man, because when I go for cuss out people, or when in my mind I knock out 50 people already, there's no man, something really wrong with me, because Jesus said you should love your enemies, or you should. So now I start realizing, oh, you're not so good, you're not so innocent, you really do have a need for a savior. Sometimes I guess at those tender ages or those young ages, we don't see the need for salvation because we don't think we're bad, we're children, we're good. But going through mass and going through school and everything, I was like, but you lie, brother. Your friend asks you where you reach. Your mama so me dead right to the but you lie.
Yeah.
You know, so things like that brought me to that. And in 8th grade, I came closer to, okay, do something about recognizing, yes, you have issues, yes, you have sins, what do you do about it? So I got saved in 8th grade, and my aunt had invited me to her church, around this time, so I was going to church. Heading into church, I don't know how many young people would have this experience, but being invited there, because I was so aware of my sin now, when I got to the doorsteps of the church, my aunt went in, and I was thinking, you're not hot. And I remember looking at the person beside me like, why am I so hot? And I was saying, but I can't go in there because I got burned. Because my consciousness of my sin made me think that when I go into this physical church, definitely God just going to strike me. I'm just going to burn up. I'm going to wait at the back seat. And there's so many people who stay away from our churches because they're like, no, but me can't go there, so I'm not holy enough. I'm not clean enough. And I started going and finding fellowship and finding people who received you and could walk with life through you. So you alluded to the fact that evangelism is important, but having catch the fish, what do we do with it? For me, one of the biggest or strongest things is discipleship. What Miss Bryce did was more than just give me the books or just come and tell me that there's a Jesus. She walked with me. And even these friends that I would have met, Katie and Annalisa, at church, would have walked with me. They called me, they sent me messages, they knew what was happening in my life. So the outward picture was pretty, but they knew the traumas I would have been experiencing, the reason, the root cause of the same angers or faithfulness. So yeah, that brought me to a place of complete surrender.
Okay, so we're gonna pull it a bit back, Jayvienne, because you mentioned about how Alicia and your other friend knew what was happening in your house and how you coming to Christ would have helped you navigate the situation at home. But I want you to delve a bit more now into what was happening at home and when did you realize that this is real trouble? Like, was it the first time it happened, the second time? What kind of sparked you to say, boy, this is real trouble, this is not good for me and it's not good for my family. So what was happening at home and when did you really realize that this is not good?
Well, let me answer the latter first. I don't think I recognized how bad these things were while experiencing it. It would seem like it was seasonal. Each time something like that would happen, it would be a sudden surprise. Like, why? You'd think the last time was the last time, and so it was just a one-off thing. But then each time, progressively, these things would get worse, and then you start connecting with, maybe I should just keep expecting this. So everything was good, fun. I mean, we would go out on Friday evenings and go out to Burger King, and we'd dress up as a family to take pictures in Emancipation Park or things like that. And it was fun and living up the life. And I guess a part of it is that my mother my mother is such a protection to us and such a strong person that she would have shielded us from what would have been more awareness of danger. But I remember the first time, and I'm sure this is probably not the first time he would have hit her, but it's the first time it hit home to me that, oh, your mother get beaten, man. Because you as a child, you're afraid of beating, and if you give trouble, you're like, oh, I don't want to be beaten. I remember coming home from school one evening, and I'm outside under this huge guinea tree, and I saw my mother come through the gate, and when she lifted her head, there was a plaster across her face, a bandage. She's coming from the hospital, and I thought, what is that on my mother's face? That's the first time I can remember, and it was a moment of, it struck fear in my heart. I can remember seeing this plaster on her face and thinking, what happened? And her eye was bloodshot at the time and red, and I thought, my God, somebody really went to town on mommy. And it just didn't connect what happened, but progressively, so the home experience is, I have a loving mother who, is very caring, always going all out for us. I have a younger sibling that I love him to pieces, even though with Tom and Jerry around the house all the time, and mommy have to tell him, say, go sit down, because if him take up my phone, I go chase him with the mopstick, stuff like this. But love was there. My stepfather, however, jovial and funny, and people love him. People will draw to him, but he's very aggressive. I mean, like a flip of the switch. When he becomes aggressive, you think he's a whole new person. And he would beat my brother for anything. So we don't go out to play. We'd watch people play on the road. Like other children would play, but we can't go out there to join the football or go. So we watch from in the yard, watching them play outside. If he heard that we went outside, he'd be beaten. Say my brother would be in second grade, grade 2, and I'm beating him for 10 times and 12 times timetable. And when you're being beaten, you're being beaten. My brother is your complexion, and by the time he's done, wails and very red, and that would be very traumatic to my mom, even because she would cry or she'd look what she did to my baby. One of the first times, again, I would have experienced, we went to the beach. So I didn't go to the beach often, back then anyway, which is probably why I couldn't swim, but so I went to the beach for the first time, and as a baby, my little brother would be, baby, just think it's a child you have to carry. He was afraid of the water because he's just seeing the sea for the first time, and his father decided he has to learn to swim. He can't be afraid of the sea because men don't fear, and throws him into the water, takes him from his mother and throws the child into the water. And I remember me and my mother just being in complete shock, like, are you crazy? Meanwhile, my mother, of course, somebody just throw your child in the water, you're not very peaceable about it. He's getting upset that you just throw a baby in the sea because he must learn to swim. So those would be the experiences for me, I guess, with his knowledge of how teenagers are. So this would be me in lower school, whatever. I can't have certain friends. I can't, because he's going to equate it to me being a bad girl. I must want a man or one boyfriend, and then that leads to beating. And as I told him, my tongue at the time was not a bridle tongue as it is now. So if he says the wrong thing, I'm going to say, but you're not my father. The result of that statement, of course, I got punched in the mouth. I have a double row teeth, so when I smile, you should be able to see it. He punched me on this side of my face, and my lip split, and I couldn't go to school because that side of my face was swollen. Now, of course, you go to school, they would ask, what is wrong? Why is this child coming to school with half her face look like a trailer ran over it? That was distressing to my mom. My mother couldn't have friends because he was just a manipulative, controlling, and aggressive individual.
So he would abuse both you, like, so he would physically hit you, your brother, and then you also witness him physically hit your mom.
And I think, yes, that's true, but I think more deeply affecting me or affected me at the time was what happened with them and less of what happened to me. Because as I got older as well, I think I got less of the actual physical beatings or physical interactions, but just seeing how it emotionally affected my mom, how it affected my brother, that was trauma enough for me. So initially we lived in the space that we were in one room, right? And so I remember a lot of times I'm very quiet back then, and I remember my mom would think after we said the Gen to Jesus, meek and mild, we'd be sleeping, so we'd be next to the other bed sleeping. And I remember one of the things that stuck with me as something painful is I could hear my mom at night crying. She would think I'm sleeping, but just the stress of what she goes through, and then she wakes up the next morning cooking great fried dumpling and I guess fish like nothing happened. I was like, no, honey, I heard you last night. I know what's going on here. So even those things would have been
Very
traumatic.
At any point, all right, so at this point, you would have been a teenager progressing through high school. This is happening in your household. You accepted Christ. You have these friends who are walking with you on this journey in church, helping you maneuver this. Christ is also teaching you more, and you're learning how to handle the situation better. At any point, did you start to, want to sit down and talk to your mother or your stepdad to say, what you're doing is very traumatic and it's affecting us emotionally and mentally. Did you ever try to sit him down and talk to him?
I think I wish I had the maturity to think I could talk to him, but initially, all my thoughts, as I said, I was a very angry child.
Right.
I would think we need to get out of this, and so my way of thinking of escape would be, I heard a woman down the road talking about this hot oil thing. I wonder maybe if him go to sleep, I need to hot some oil. Or I thought about ice picks, and I'm being completely open because a lot of children, if I answer the good way first, then they're going to feel like, oh, so nobody feels like what I feel like. But I remember in my mind plotting, I'm gonna have to get rid of this man because my mom not getting rid of him, and him not going to get rid of himself. So we're going to have to figure out how we're getting rid of him, man. So we're thinking all the ways that would be the best way. And though the issues and the things were traumatic and they were bad, and God doesn't want anybody to do that to their child, as I grew in God, God expected me to change. He was trying to change me. He wasn't changing the man. He wasn't necessarily changing this, but he was dealing with my unforgiveness, dealing with my pride, my trying to be strong, dealing with my aggression. And I remember even one of the times I stopped, I was like, if you fix the root of this, which is this person, maybe we could deal with the issues. But no, Jesus was teaching me maybe love is the solution to a lot of things. And so initially I would be very combative. If I hear him locking the door to lock my mother in the room, I would go to open the door because why you need to lock up with her in there? There's nothing private you need to do. Because the fear in me, the fear reaction, once the door is closed, if I hear the lock, it means I can listen for the screams after. I can listen to hear something else. So I don't want a locked door in this place. So if the door is locking, I'm going to come and I'm going to run you. You're a child, hold a child space, but I'm going to be there. I was very combative. As I grew in Christ, as I was studying his word and actually started praying and fasting, I started learning to a soft answer, turn it away wrath, don't enter into foolish arguments, learning to love and to forgive and to talk to him, say, why are you how you are? Tell me about how you grew up. Because and one of the ways I was able to talk to him is revelation, the spirit of revelation. God saying to me, he's like this because of his mother. He's like this because, and so God is beginning to, and I said, God, but me in a business about team story. He's affecting my story. But getting to see the person and not necessarily the actions and the demonic influences and stuff like that changes your perspective. You begin to see a soul and you begin to say, oh,
that needs healing too.
You're right. So knowing what happened.
Even though we're not making an excuse for his action, but he also needed healing.
And God wasn't telling me to be his band-aid either. Because but it's something I needed to grow in or learn in, because there will be people who will try to hurt you or even hurt you. God is saying, don't let everything that's outside break you. Don't let it come in and seep in you. You don't lose yourself in the negative experiences you're having. And I think that's what he was preparing me for, because we have to flow from a place of health. If broken people break others and we continue to be broken, then we're going to continue to break other people. And so God wants to address that. So I learned to love him. Mind you, talking about that experience may seem like he was the only negative experience, but when he began to become excessively abusive, where my family feared him, where my mom feared him, even if she didn't say it outwardly, I began to see the absence of my father. Now I realize, if my father was around, this man wouldn't be around. Where is his father?
Right.
Why isn't he fathering? And so I realized, whoa, I got a lot of issues. And you could imagine how growing and starting to want boyfriends and things like that, these issues can transfer into those situations.
At any time throughout this period, Jayvienne, did you actually get to speak to your father? Or did you ever share it with him throughout this period?
Actually, I would think even now as an adult, my father knows very little of my upbringing. Now we have a good relationship where I talk with him, pray for him, but I've never actually had a conversation to say, hey, this was my upbringing, in your absence, this happened.
So you have never actually confronted your father even about his absence?
Yes. So, and I'm sure he would feel that he's a great dad.
Yeah.
And to, in all due respect, he is a dad. But so recently, the Lord helped me to address even the issue with my father, to say, I think you need to, there's something I need to say to him. Of course, I don't think I want to say it here until I say it to him, but addressing the fact that I don't think he recognizes the impact of absence. And a lot of men don't recognize the impact of absence, because they would think if they're seasonally around, they're not absent.
They're not absent.
And so he would, I didn't know him, as I told you, saw the picture, getting through with GSAT. He came back. So initially he was in England, and now he's back. And that's when I'm getting to know him. But he came back like a dad, like, this is my daughter, we've been together all along. There was this great love. And I was like, bro, I don't know you. I don't know. Why you want to hug me? You're a male that wants to hug me. I don't know you.
Right.
So there was that. And then in that season, he was in Jamaica for a little while, probably 2 years, thereabouts. So in that time, I was getting to know this person. I know so little about him. I was getting to know him. Then he left for America. And I thought I had a good thing going on. And now I became like those children that were barrel kids. So you know everything nice. You get every nice shoes. Yeah. So now that's what I thought. Okay, my dad is that. He is the one that gives me the gifts and give me everything that I want. The pretty camera, the good stuff. And then he went MIA again. So now when I finally remember, I initially like, I don't know you, bro. I don't know where you're coming with this. Walls were up. Walls are down. Let you in. You give me gifts. MIA. I was like, what wrong with me? Because clearly it's me make him leave the first time. Now he knows me again. He's left like, something wrong with me. But unwanted. Something must wrong, man. So the man disappear again, and then he will pop up again with a message or a, I love you, expecting an I love you back. And I'm like, 6 months, 3 years. Like you're counting this space of time. Are you not in this space of time with me?
Right.
But over the flipping and the flopping and not being around, he would explain away probably what was happening in his life, or explain away. But I tried to talk to your mother. My mother wasn't stopping you from fathering me. She may not have been your friend. Like, she may not have wanted relationship with you, but I'm still, you get what I'm saying? So, and that's probably what I should talk to him to say, I love you, I've forgiven you, you're my daddy, it's not going to change. But probably stop blaming everybody,
right. And
every
accepting
situation. Yeah. probably acknowledge the impact of your absence.
You answered my question that I was just about to ask you. Your stepdad, your father, have you truly forgiven them?
Yeah, man, let them go, brother, because man heavy for carrying a heart, you know. I have truly forgiven them. And even forgiveness is such a journey. I think years ago, if you asked me the question, I would have said, yes, I forgave them. But even since that, there are layers that God has to peel and deal with and say, yes, you've forgiven this, or yes, you've done with that. Forgiveness doesn't remove the hurt. It doesn't negate that there was hurt or wounding there. And so it's important, depending on what persons are going through as well, that they probably get counseling to unpack and unravel these things, because there are seeds that will remain, and even,
And it will show.
right, and even deliverance ministries in churches. I think everybody sees deliverance as limbs growing or healing, and we see it as demons being cast out, but wounded souls get deliverance. When you're wounded in your soul, you need deliverance. And there are some things that even the greatest counselors, bless their hearts and they're good, can't reach, because God is the one that knew the root of this trauma, or God knows how to deal with this. And so I've forgiven them, and there are layers of hurt that God will uncover that I've either repressed or that I didn't even recognize the start of, that He will deal with.
And suppressed and put aside.
Right.
And sometimes in some of your actions and in some interactions, you realize
With others, it comes out.
Part of me still needs a bit more healing that I'm not giving it that much attention to. Yeah. Serious business.
Yeah.
And healing is serious business.
Definitely.
It allows you to face the thing, and you have to be real with it. Like, this thing hurt me deeply, it wounded me, and you have to face it all over again.
Yeah.
Let it go, walk through it, acknowledge that the pain is real. Do not push it away. Right. Yeah. The pain is not there. The pain is real.
It's there. And it's confronting. I think so yes, you've forgiven persons. Sometimes we see forgiveness as, okay, I knew this person did this hurt me, let them go. And you thought you've forgiven, but forgiveness means the thing, feel the thing,
right,
go through the thing, because sometimes our desire to escape the emotion, because it's not a positive emotion. It doesn't feel good when you start bawling your eyes out and people go and wonder, and you're going to say, oh no, years ago, I remember beating a gut, or people going to be like, what wrong with you, friend? Move on in life. Like, you're still there. But yeah, I have to be there because it hasn't been dealt with. I have to deal with it. So forgiveness also looks like dealing with that, confronting that. In some instances, you may have to actually confront the person to say, I've forgiven you, I've released you. You may have to express love to the person. So a practical thing that God had me do as I was older, dealing with my stepfather, because I had such resentment and hatred towards him, was God started telling me to do things like scrub his foot, cook his favorite meal. And I'd be like, who you talking to, Jesus? Because I love you, Lord. You good. But what? Who's crusty foot? And the Lord would say, he would probably challenge, is that disobedience? I was like, no, I'm going to be obedient. And I had to do it, even in doing it, I had to do it not grudgingly. So I had to lovingly do it. And as I begin to walk that out and express love, I saw change in him as well. I can't make him a better person, but showing love causes love to flow. I wish he would have been completely transformed by that, but again, you can hold yourself accountable for people and their actions, and even in your forgiving them, don't lay your emotion and yourself careless to be harmed again. I think when I started dealing with forgiveness, I thought it meant he would become better or be a good person because I've forgiven him. And so I dropped my guard and didn't have expectations of bad things, of negative things. But he would do it again, and that's what made the forgiveness hard, because I would have a fresh hurt. Because my expectation was that he was different, if he did something bad, it would just jolt my faith, jolt my relationship with God, jolt everything to say, why would this be happening? It would surprise me every time, like a child with a jack in the box. You just see something go down in the box. If you're wheeling it, you ain't come back up.
Right.
But you just somehow don't realize until after when it pops up and you're like, whoop, didn't see that coming. So forgiveness doesn't mean that that person is going to change. But I that they deserve the forgiveness. But you also didn't deserve what God gave you.
Right.
You still deserve it no matter how closer we are or holier we are. We still don't deserve it.
Definitely.
But he gives it anyway.
Definitely. Jayvienne, as you now matured into adulthood, we're going to touch about you heading into Bible college and all of that good jazz. Did all of this situation affect your interaction with men?
Yeah. Relationships affect relationships. And we don't put weight on parenting or upbringing like we should. But your upbringing shapes your worldview, your perspectives. And so it flows into relationships. It flows into your friendships for those who are dealing with others because your identity is being shaped in this aggressive environment, this pressuring environment. It affects those areas. So even I didn't like having female friends. I used to think them chat too much. Or because I always felt like I needed to be aggressive, I needed to be the strong support. I have to be ready at all times for any combating. So that would flow in friendships. If the girl said the wrong thing, she get cut off. Or things like that, it would overflow in that way. But even I'm married now, and one would think I've been married 7 years this December. One would think with the years of salvation that I just explained I've walked in, that by now where the marriage part is, you're a pro at this. Your emotions should be properly dealt with. But even then, you would see seeds.
Right.
At this present moment in this season, I would say, to my knowledge, every seed has been uprooted.
Right.
So it doesn't have that control. But that doesn't mean it's not recent history that those seeds were finally taking out the last bits of all of the things that I had to work through. So I would see it flowing into other relationships for sure.
Definitely. So we're gonna touch a bit more about how that impacted even marriage and you going into marriage. But just share a bit about your Bible
Bible
college
college.
experience, yes. What was that like for you? How
So
did you know that you wanted to go to Bible college?
I wasn't sure that I knew that. So I've always been meticulous about planning life. And so from early, I recognized I need to be rich and I need to be smart. People don't take advantage of smart people, and rich people get to make decisions about what they want to do. And so from then I began, this is what I want, so this is how I need to get there. And for me, I said, okay, I'm seeing my skills. I talk well, or I good at this. I can analyze, I can whatever. So let me go into a field that governs. And so I made up my mind at that time to do law. I made up my mind. I'm a lawyer at heart. I'm gonna be a judge, and I'm gonna go being a judge at family court. I'm just giving you details. My mind was made. Okay. I'm gonna be a judge in family court, and I'm going to do legislative writing because the laws protecting and their children are rubbish, and family court is rubbish. And somebody needs to show the police that they, in handling domestic cases, is rubbish. So this is what I'm going to do with my life. Throughout high school, a lot of teachers and persons would say the mark or the phrase would always be your wasted potential or your full of potential, and that's it. And even towards what you're speaking over people because you are declaring things. You are breaking people and not knowing it. And for years I held that. Like, God, why am I full of so much capacity but can't do anything? I'm nothing. So I would be really smart, but I'll fail exams. Be really smart, but I can't sit through hours of you talking to me reading. In fact, reading the textbook that I could have read at home. I did read at home. And so I wasn't the child that's going to be at the front of the class quietly staring into this teacher's eyes. I'm the child that is going to pick up on your grammatical errors. I'm the child that is going to say, Miss, but you know, say we could have read that in the handout where you give it last week, so you have something to add to where you tell we know because they must sell ice cream outside, you know? And yeah. But with all this decision making, I can see God strengthening. I prided myself on my intellect. I recognized you are smart, you are intelligent. I, at the time, didn't see it as it coming from God. And so I prided myself on that, and that was going to be my fortified thing. Right. Going into high school, so after all the wasted potential statements, I passed my CXCs. And it was so important that when my CXC results came out, there were some people who looked at the results, looked up at me, looked at it again, and was like, huh, she actually have use. And I went into sixth form planning to do law now because I was like, I have enough use to do law. Then the Lord at this time would be working on me, so I shared a lot of friends or acquaintances, and I was very isolated. And I even felt like, God, me and these friends can't be friends because you are pulling me away, but can't I have friends? I even thought I can't have boyfriends. I'm never ever going to have anything like that because I'm going to be a nun. That's why God sent me to a Catholic school, because I'm clearly going to be a nun. And at the time, even my confronting God or talking to God, I was saying, God, I don't have no friends, none. I don't have boyfriend, none. Clearly, it's a sign I'm not going to have nothing, so I'm going to be a nun. I'm sure God was looking like, you are one puppy show. Yes. Nonetheless, I went through sixth form. I did the law courses, but while going through sixth form, God began to give me godly friends, Christian friends who, at the time, I didn't want Christian friends because I thought they were going to be weird and boring and everything going to be like Bible. They don't have no sense otherwise. But my friends were so different, and I was like, nice people in a church, like they were funny, but them serious about God, you know. God, but they did other fun things. Yeah, because like if I had a headache, this friend is not going to ask, but friend only have to like, in the name of Jesus, come out, and that headache going away. Right. Then I just, in the name of Jesus, I'm not happening. And so I began to experience kingdom living, like right relationships, people who go and challenge you and say, you're wrong. Why you're faced with the teacher or whatever it is, but still be so loving and so joyful. And with that we started like a ministry, genuine linen ministry. So we were all girls and we pray for other students, and we started seeing deliverance happening right there. Girls used to cut themselves and they would come. One evening we were outside having like a worship session under the trees, and we were just worshiping and praising, and girls started just coming. But I have to come to you because we're going through this distressment, or we're going through this, and we'd pray over them, and then we started seeing their lives being different. And at that time, God brought it to me that you want to do law, but I have bigger things for you to do. Deal with my law. And so he drawed me. He said, the reason you're priding yourself on the law is that you're priding on law because you think law is going to bring you through.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, man. So you're being prided on law, but you can't. Law is not going to be the one that's going to provide for your law. Your intellect isn't what is important. So apparently, I needed to work that out and throw that away and take up his way. And so he said, I'm sending you to Bible college. And I was like, I was taken aback because how could I go to Bible college? First of all, being saved was throwing my family for a loop. And then, okay, they got used to me being safe. Now I'm going to tell them that all these years of spending money to send me to school, because law alone was $50,000 per semester, separate from your school fee. I'm now going to tell them, as I made up my mind and chat how I go into law, and them sacrificing $50,000. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to do law. God is sending me to Bible college. You don't have a Bible at your yard. College the book at your yard and go study law, because this is money.
Right.
What Bible college going to do for you? Where are you going to put that? Who going to hire you? What are you going to do? But even in that, I had to trust God. And remember, my stepfather wouldn't have been saved. So imagine me telling him, oh, you
That
see
you
all
want to go
those
to
hot
Bible
days you
college.
work in the sun? It's Bible college happening here. Or say you want to do more things to come back into the house, to come and pray me out of the house 24/7. Okay. But the Lord worked it out that they would have paid for it, and I started JTS. At JTS, I thought I was in the center of God's plans. I'm doing what He wants because JTS worked out miraculously. My stepfather dropped me off at school.
Wow.
Him who not drop nobody, no, him not getting up out of bed for nobody. He was there in that season, and even that was a change. And then during JTS, I was growing and learning, and I realized I can't afford it. 1 year in, and I can't afford it. I can't continue and say, God, no, I look like a big clown. Because all my schoolmates are perfect in life. They're going to UE, they go scholarships are dashing away. Nobody doing business with JTS to give them scholarship.
Right.
The worst, JTS sure, but if you're a counselor, you're going there to study Bible, who going to give you scholarship? Go read your Bible. You want to study it.
Not important to them.
Right. And I said, God, but I out here and I live, I'm out here trusting you. And so I had to leave JTS for a year. I took a year off, said, okay, I'm going to try to work and send myself back because I know this is God. And in that time, I got called to a residence Bible college. The Lord said, I'm moving you from here. Yes, you would grow in intellect at JTS. And yes, there are people who grow there spiritually, but you wouldn't grow there spiritually. And so He said, I'm sending you. I'm Kingstonian, and I'm used to the luxuries of
City
Kingston.
life.
Shop is right out there. And God said, you're going to Manchester, Christiana, Bush. And I don't know this place. But I was like, okay, God. Oh, no disrespect to the Christiana people. I've learned to love it. It's not just Bush anymore. But it was Bush for me. Way over the other side of the island, far from my mother. And remember, I would still be thinking, if I'm away from my mother, who in my heart am my mother's defense. I am her shield and buckler.
Right.
How can I go all the way to Manchester and leave my mother? That don't make sense. But the Lord provided that way. I didn't even apply. I was called for an interview for something I didn't apply for. Because I was adamant, God, I'm not applying. I'm not going there. And I got called for the interview, went, and I thought, yo, these are big Christian people. They're definitely not going to take me. And I went in, and my interview was completely different from everybody else's. In fact, the dean at the time said to me, I saw you as I prayed for students coming in. So now I wondered, what's your name? And I told her my name. I was like, God, this is a setup. And the year I started Bible college, the college burned down. I'm saying, God, all right, it's a real clown life. It's a circus life, this. It's puppy show thing, this with the point. And God said, no, I've got you. Anything that I put my weight on, my faith on, I'm putting everything on it, and it's not him go move it. So I said, all right, I'm going to Bible college for sure.
Right.
When I get there, I'm there, like I'm there for 2 days, and the third day the school burned down. In fact, the person who runs the Assemblies of God, I remember when he came down and he said, Dennis, when you come down here, come, but none of the people in the place. He was joking, making light, because we really were dealing with that fire thing. We had to pull out our stuff, and it was crazy that whole night. But I stayed because God said, in the back of the wilderness, in this place, I'm going to build you. And yeah, I would say it built me. I learned to not put Christians on pedestals because I saw the humanity
You saw them as humans.
in us as Christians, but I saw the supernatural. I saw these same people that just yesterday me accustomed to stop teeth up the breakfast because it have to share for everybody, and the craving boy them eat off. And we as the girls come up and couldn't get it because we're cute up for the school, and school is just right down the road, so I don't know why. But even after seeing them name the breakfast, I'm cuss out them daylight for the breakfast. These men were laying hands on students. And so God began to shift my focus of what kingdom looks like, of what gospel looks like. And I don't put people on pedestals to think they're sinless, but I also see the grace of God
see
to
what God can do through
move
them.
through any of us.
Right.
And so I grew exponentially.
Awesome. So now that you're at Bible college, you're growing, you're experiencing Christ. You're also understanding what the will of God might look like. It
For your
might
life.
very much look very different from what you think it
Yes.
would look like. but you're learning to accept it and walk in it with grace. Was it at Bible college that you met your husband?
Actually, we were friends for, I would say our friendship kindled in lower sixth form when I started taking God seriously.
Okay.
I went to the same church, but I've never seen him as a friend. We just go to the same church. You're just passing by night. This person sitting that pew, his friends, so there are three of them that grew up together, and so his friends, I was friends with them.
Okay.
And so I was, but he would just happen to be there if I'm talking to my other friends. He really wasn't on my radar at all. And one day, I should preface that with, I've had boyfriends before him, and I had no good expectation of males because of these boyfriends,
Especially
including Christian boyfriends, who I would think, okay, I met this person at camp or I met this person at church, so and then they were the same as people out in the world with the same expectations, probably worse. So at this point, I didn't want nothing to do with man. And I remember I just said it that I was convinced I'm a nun. So I'm not looking at them. And I remember saying, God, I'm fed up with my negative experiences with men. I'm gonna go on an entire year. I don't want I don't want to see man, I don't want to like man, I don't want a boyfriend, I don't want a woman, but I definitely don't want a boyfriend right now. So God just help me. I go for 1 year, I just me and you alone, God. Me and you shut in. Me no want to see them. God, you say if me tell you say me like somebody, God, box me. Because me no want to see them. And the Lord said, all right, 1 year with me, I'll teach you about you and I'll teach you about men. In coming down to the end of that year now, I actually became friends with my husband, like friends. We were joking and talking, just regular friends. No idea of liking each other, right? And so in our friendship, he initiated the friendship by texting me and saying, I noticed I had your number. I was like, you're fresh. What do you mean you notice you have my number, so you're going to use it? It's where the boy you come from. I was about to block and delete him so fast. I was about to tell him you're fresh, brother. Come off from phone and block and delete. But it was a timing that God was like, okay, your heart is at the place to receive and understand certain things. So yeah, now you can be friends with guys without. And so we were friends all through sixth form. As I was making decisions, life-changing decisions about Bible college and so forth, he was right there with me. And in the residential Bible college, we started dating. God gave us the permission. Our relationship was definitely God putting everything together. He set timings. He set, even dealing with the things I would tell you about, God would tell me when to tell him. He'd say, tell him about this because you guys have to deal with this. I said, God, tell him what? My business? I need to tell. God, if I start ball now, make a ball in front of man, it can't happen. I said, all right, God. With every time, God would remind me, are you being disobedient? I said, no, I'll do anything you want. I love you. But God, you put me out there, man. You ramp rough. Yes. What if the boy not like me again? So I'm going to tell him all of them history I know. Say me not like if man shout. Say me, what him going to know me history. I'm going to go on. Because a good Christian boy from good Christian home. Him not have them trauma in them life.
But how did your trauma start to be highlighted in the
relationship?
Our courtship? Mm-hmm.
So as we say, I'm kind of strong. I don't take lightly certain things. And so for me, if I think you are trying to control me, well, that back then, if I think you're trying to control me, if you talk too strong, if you're like directing, instructing me, I said, calm down, I will cut you down a couple notches. Don't, oh, he's big, he's tall, right? So even that, like if we're talking, like we were sitting and you start stand up, no, but you stand up for me, I gotta stand up too, because if a war, we are warring, and he's probably just standing up for no other reason, right? But so that's when we started seeing things. I had to deal, so in dating a person, you start realizing that, oh, your daddy issues are showing, because you don't show. Oh, so for me, he was such a fairy tale kind of dating person. He's so caring, thoughtful, always available, praying. Him just nice and right, and it's just suspicious because something must
wrong with
we
you.
must not know
Yeah,
something.
there must be a hidden thing that we not
Yes.
see.
And so translating, there were two fields that translated. So the mistrust of thinking, okay, the shoe will soon drop. He will soon leave. Like that went to get the milk and never came. Or the shoe will soon drop. This sweet guy will change suddenly on me. Will suddenly change. You know what I mean? And I was like, no, maybe I need to deal with these things. Because if you can't interact with people, you can't trust people. You're using the fat of someone else to fry this individual. And so that is how things started coming up. And I just couldn't trust that he is this good. And he will continue to be this good. No, nobody not that good. And the Lord would tell me, no, you were the cause of that argument you guys had, or this was your issue. And we had to deal with it. So that's how the stuff started coming up, and I had to address it with him. Not that I wanted.
So did it start, so when you guys decided to get married, you were pretty young. Do you want to share that age?
I was 21 and he was 22. And even, as I said, the dating for us, we were pretty mature because God was in the middle of everything and he would prepare us. Personally, so we are very active in youth group, CAs. And so when they had certain discussions, people would hear it coming out of us, how we look at life, how we look at things, and people like, yeah, them pretty mature, them kind of have them heads screwed on. And even in that, just like I planned out my life with law, my expectation that if I marry someone, these are the expectations. You can't want bird and you don't have bird cage, so you have to have house if you want a wife. Or you can't. And so I had all these plans, and this is how marriage would work, and this is what would happen. But God's timing and God's ways of working things out are so vastly different from how we think things should work. Definitely. Even the expectations that we have of what our spouse should look like. She must have a Coca-Cola bottle shape, she must have long hair, or he must be this tall, that dark, this cute, this way. I had an impression that he has to be very thick and he has to be very confident. I don't want a wishy-washy man. I got a quiet husband, meaning outwardly quiet anyway, but I learned later that I got what I needed because nobody no changer than him. But, so in that time, these were my expectations. This is what he should look like, and he didn't fit any of that bill. But he fit what God needed him to be. And so being married that young, people would say, one, when you're young, when you have all of the same fixings that they think makes a marriage.
And I wanted to debunk some of those myths, at least myths for me.
Yeah.
About what you should, not that you should be workless and have no ambition,
right?
But the kind of rigidity about having this in place, then this, then this, then that, before you're qualified to go out there and engage in that.
Well, the first myth we should rubbish is that young man is not your ticket into wealth or your ticket into better life. And I think as a society we teach girls to prepare to be a wife so that that young man would be your solution to your financial woes. He'll get you out of the ghetto or whatever. No, what kind of pressure you put on the people, them son? Marriage is a partnership. It's a oneness and a building together. And a lot of us want a relationship where one partner has everything figured out.
Right.
And then you come with your nothing.
Your nothing and baggage.
And join with that person and know your life is all figured out because they had it figured out. Right. That's rubbish.
Right.
It's actually far more beautiful building together when you both have dreams and you both are pushing towards that and you watch God mold this person into who you even saw them being long before they got there. And the same with you. I think as well, this idea that because you are older in age, you are mature enough for marriage is also rubbish.
Right.
Because in my dating experience, so my husband and I have this thing where we used to say, we're not Guinep, we're not taste and buy Guinep. Because people used to say, don't buy puss in a bag. And I guess I should explain these Jamaican terms. They're simply saying engage in fornication so you'll know what sex will be like. So you know that you're getting good sex. What if you take him up and him now have no use? Or what if you take she up and she boring and she can't do so and so? But what if you chance it and then they don't look like what you expected, where you're going to just leave and it's fine, it's okay, so you're just going to keep this mattress mentality. Why I brought that up with age is it was older people coming to us and say, I hope you sample the meat. I hope you...
Not from church.
What you saying? From church. Big hat wearing, long frock wearing, at the front row sitting. Church people saying, test it. Don't rush in. Make sure it'll work. I said, then it's not machine. And if God gives good gifts, it better be good when I get it. I don't need to test if the gift going to be good. It's not Guinea and a market banana, everybody come feel up, feel up. So the idea that just because I'm older, I'm more mature, no. Even older people have baggages that they don't deal with.
Right.
And they bring that into marriages.
Right.
And a lot of them as well will rush people into marriage because you need to have sex now.
You know
or
what, not to cut you, Jayvienne, but you know, as you mentioned something that a church folk said to you, in my own experience, I remember a church, like a church mother, like she said, remember say, when you're hungry, sex now go for your belly, you know?
Yes.
So
and
know
love
what they are
can't go
getting to.
supermarkets.
Right.
So don't take up no broke boy. And they label these are the same young men that they're in church saying man shots in a church, and they might label the young men who are probably in college, in whatever. You're writing them off already, like you and Jesus did co-sign the young man's story. You don't know God's intent for where he'll go. Now, I've always said preparation is important. Maturity is important in marriage. So if at 21 you are not mature enough for it, you're entering it for the wrong reason, leave it alone. But maturity is not equated in age. A lot of older people are running into marriage because time run out on them, because them clocks ticking or so forth, or because they settle with somebody that isn't for them either, because the pressures of everybody around them telling them to get somebody. So age isn't it. Timing, meaning God's timing and right season, is what matters. And at that age we were. In fact, as I said, me talking about he must have house, he must have that. God dressed me up properly himself. When my son asks you for your hand, your answer will be yes, because that's the person I was given to you. In this 1 year that I took with God, when I said I don't want any boyfriend, I said, Lord, the next person I date, the next person that I say, oh, this is my boyfriend or this is whatever, let it be the man you want me to marry. I don't want no other relationship. You know, I don't need to test nothing else. I've seen it all, them don't work. Marriage is the next step. So, of course, if at that time when my husband said, you know, we've been friends for a while, can we get to know each other? I said, brother, take that to Jesus, because if you're not my husband, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
And even his reaction to things like that, even while we were friends, I was in the year and I said, listen, to be honest with you, I don't know if I want to be a friend even, because I'm in a year and you're going to come throw a wrench in my situation. But he just had the right answers, graciously handled everything. He took it serious that he would go to God for his daughter. He didn't take these things lightly. And he still wasn't, Jackie Perry calls them church boy folk, meaning he wasn't stuck up. You know, you have some people real righteous.
Very churchy.
Like, very churchy. Not even, let me not say righteous, because it's the self-righteousness that they have and not necessarily righteousness. But a real self-righteous. So if you as a brethren have a cut pants or whatever, you look a certain way, then, you know, holy enough. But no, he wasn't that. He was serious in God, but fun.
Right. All right, Jayvienne, it was so fun talking to you, but I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
If there is a young couple now that's planning on getting married or even dating right now, but you know they have the pressures of church people, family, just kind of trying to direct them, trying to steer them, trying to show them where to go, maybe telling them that they're very young, they're not ready for it. As you said, the mindset of you must have house, car, you must complete this degree, you must have a good job. Not that anything is wrong with these things, but they have this timeline and these things set in order that must be completed. If them not completed, you're not qualified, sit one side. What would you say to that couple navigating that kind of period right now?
Having lived through not having all the things I wanted to have, my husband was in my life at the right seasons. He was there when my mom and us dealt with her combating cancer. He was there at the right time. If I did not have a partner in those seasons the way I had him, I wouldn't be who I am today. And so I needed that union. My thing to you guys as young couples, what God put together, let no man put asunder. Saying that to say your marriage is a calling. The Bible says, who can have it, who is ready to have it, it is there. And so in your call, it wasn't a conference call, it's you and him, or you and her, God called. It's good to entertain wise counsel. Wisdom is in wise counsel. When people come with good advice, when people come with godly information, take it. Don't be prideful. Especially, they will be able to tell you things that you didn't even know you needed in how to handle your accounts or whatever. But do not let people be the final say in your relationship. God is the third person. He is your three-thread cord that makes you strong. You're strong enough together. Don't let people tell you their timelines, because people tell you a lot of things based on their own fears. They feared not having all the things provided. They think they suffered through life because this didn't happen. You will suffer. They put their fears, their projections, their experiences even with people on you. Don't let people do that.
Definitely.
God don't need their co-signature for you to have a godly marriage.
Definitely. Jayvienne, I want to thank you so much for sitting with us, sharing your story. I was inspired, and I'm sure that others listening and watching were inspired. Thank you for being bold. Thank you for wanting God to be glorified. And just thank you for speaking, sharing, and having somebody overcome, because I'm sure there are many others going through the same situation or similar that you went through, and know they'll have, some kind of relatability, and they'll understand better how to navigate the situation. So I want to say thank you so much for your time. Don't move yet. I'm going to give the audience a few minutes if you have any questions, just to ask. I'm sure Jayvienne will be okay with this. Any question that you'd like to ask her, anything that you want to know, any advice that you'd want from her, it's open to you. Anyone? No, you don't have to come up. You can just speak aloud.
Okay, thanks for that question. So the question was, just in case you guys don't hear, at any time did I blame my mother for not protecting us, for not shielding us from my stepfather? No, I didn't blame her for that, but I had resentment at one season because I thought I was upset with her that she wasn't powerful enough to walk away, because I was more angry that she was letting this happen to her. I know she tried shielding us, but I was more angry because I thought, why do you are so much, you're all that on a bag of chips. You are high class oxtail. You're not turkey neck. Why would you let this individual do this to you? Everybody wants you. You are the pick of the yet you are here. And so at the time, in my child mind, I thought I was conjuring up every avenue that she could leave. Why wouldn't you leave? As I got older and I saw the impact of why she couldn't leave, simple things like, this man is a professional stalker. We have tried running, like as a family, we've run in different places. Mom would be here, I'm here, my brother is there, and he would find us. And I'm telling you, we're running to places he has never known. But he would do things to find us. And I think I understand the fear. I understand her wanting to provide for her children. And so very quickly God mashed up that lie that I had in my mind, that why won't you leave? Why are you so weak? She wasn't weak. She was far from it. And so, yeah, the Lord renewed my mind in how I thought of my mother. And so I hold her. She is an example of strength to me. And yeah, so I don't have any resentment towards her for that. I guess just like he showed me how to look at my stepfather's hurt, I saw my mother through God's eyes.
Thank you for that question, Jermoy. Are there any other questions? None? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jayvienne. I was about to say Jermoy. Thank you so much again, Jayvienne, for your time. As I said before, it was a very inspirational story, and I'm sure that someone has been blessed by it tonight.
Thank you for having me.
The technical directors are signaling to me, distracting me. But thank you again, everyone, for staying with us and listening. Another night here on Grace by God podcast. Before we leave, we're going to have some fun. And of course, you know, as customary, we always have somebody to highlight or showcase their talent or art. And so tonight, we're going to have joining us our very own brother, Ija. Ija, where are you? So when we're back, you'll have him right here on the stage performing.
Who can stand against the Lord? Say no one can, no one will. Say who can stand against our King? No one can, no one will. The victory belongs to Jesus. The victory belongs to Him. Say the victory belongs to Jesus. The victory belongs to Him. 'Cause your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. And yours is a kingdom. Yours is a power. Yours is a glory forever. Amen. Oh, yours is a kingdom. Yours is a power. Yours is a glory forever. Amen. Yeshua. Is a power, yours is a glory forever. Amen. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Yeshua, Yeshua. Call his name, Yeshua.
God, tonight I will be ministering to you all with this song. It's like a testimonial song, it really speaks to me. It's like my favorite song, and it's definitely coming from the heart, and I just hope you're being blessed tonight. So, people get higher for weed, drugs, and alcohol, but we get higher for the word of God. So that's why them call him the Most High. You understand? Engineer, take it away. I just say goodness. I just say grace. I just say goodness. I just say grace. I just say goodness. I just say grace. No, why you love me so? I really don't know. I don't know why you love me so. I really don't know. Out of my loss and my shortfallings, still hear your voice when you're calling. Determined to live for you, even though at times I continually falling. Who am I for you to be mindful of God? Where your blood spill, you get rid of all my sins and give me grace. I don't know why you love me so. I really don't know. I don't know why you love me so. I really don't know. Can I explain a love like this? You send me only son as a gift. When you shoot me with that cupid, already you should never miss. Cause you alone could have touched my heart like this. We give you me heart until me heartless. Regardless of the times I'm imperfect. Your grace is sufficient for me, and you never yet make me feel worthless. Jesus, I don't know why you love me so. I really don't know. I don't know why you love me so. I really don't know. Explain a love like this. You send me only son as a gift. When you shoot me with a cupid, already you surely never miss. You alone could have touched my heart like this. We give you my heart until me heartless. Regardless of the times I'm imperfect. Your grace is sufficient for me, and you never yet make me feel worthless. Jesus, I don't know why you love me so. I really don't know. I don't know why you love me so. I really don't know. I don't know why you love me so. I really don't know. Bless the name of Jesus. All right, see you all next month and again.
We'll be here again, graced by God. Another interesting story. You know, every mountain, we have the story them here live. And I hope you have been blessed tonight by this story and this life experience and the ministry of the Psalm.